Hi, my name's Jennifer Campbell, and I'm a teaching professor in the writing program at the University of Denver. In this video, I'll discuss pathos, or rhetorical appeals to the emotions. We use the rhetorical triangle to represent how every rhetorical situation consists of an author or speaker communicating about a particular topic with a specific audience. When we look at the parallel triangle of rhetorical appeals, you'll see that pathos is related to the audience. These pathetic or emotional appeals are directed to our hearts, guts, and intangible values. Whether it's positive or negative, subtle prodding or blatant manipulation, much, if not most, writing involves some pathos. Classical Roman rhetorician and statesman Cicero once wrote, "Reason is the mistress and queen of all things." But he also wrote, "Men decide far more problems by hate, love, lust, rage, sorrow, joy, hope, fear, illusion, or some other inward emotion than by reality, authority, any legal standard, judicial precedent, or statute." When you consider how emotions can influence your behavior, you'll realize how important it is to be able to identify these strategies and how to use them effectively in your own arguments. We see emotional appeals in advertising all the time, from "you'll be happier with a Hoover" or "have a Coke and a smile" to maudlin videos of puppies set to sad Sarah McLachlan music. A lot of ads have appealed to our insecurities, but more and more advertisers and those who research marketing have found that positive motivations can be more effective and lead to less consumer dissatisfaction. Few would doubt that our civic discourse would benefit from more positive pathos and fewer appeals to anger, fear, or tribalism. Appeals to anger can be justified, such as in the fight for justice. Environmental activists want the public to fear climate change, but riling a crowd's emotions solely for personal gain or profit does little to promote the public good. As you learn how to make emotional appeals effectively, you should also use them ethically. From a rhetorical perspective, you can make strong pathos appeals by including testimony and details from subjective reports, personal anecdotes or connections, appeals to audience identity and self-interest, references to spirituality or religious traditions, powerful word choice or figurative language, and videos, photographs, or other images. Let's say, for example, we're trying to convince our town council to approve a skate park. We might bring in testimony from children and teens who want a safer place to skate, and that would appeal to parents' sense of protectiveness and our desire to make kids happy. We could appeal to business owners by arguing that a skate park would keep the kids from skating downtown and disturbing shoppers and shopkeepers or damaging property. This is a logical and emotional appeal to their self-interest. We could show videos of kids at our neighboring town's skate park to show that they're having fun and actually out of their rooms and exercising. Note that we can include seemingly negative emotions and positive emotions within the same argument, and sometimes the same evidence, such as a striking statistic or testimony from multiple people affected by a problem, can make a combination of appeals. Pathos appeals also may impact different audiences differently, so it's useful to consider multiple perspectives and tread lightly if you're concerned about sounding too abrasive or if you're not sure that a joke is appropriate for your uncle's funeral. The key is to think carefully about the rhetorical situation, how you can integrate ethos, logos, and pathos instead of relying only on one type of appeal, how you can strike a balance between fear-mongering and discounting relevant risks. Let's take a look at a real-world example that combines several emotional appeals to argue in favor of stricter firearms regulations. On January 8, 2011, U.S. Representative Gabby Giffords held a Congress on Your Corner event at a Tucson Safeway. That's when a gunman shot Giffords in the head and opened fire on the crowd, killing 6 whose ages ranged from 9 to 79. Giffords testified before the Senate Judiciary to call for action on gun violence.
Okay. Thank you for inviting me here today. This is an important conversation for our children, for our communities, for Democrats and Republicans. Speaking is difficult, but I need to say something important. Violence is a big problem. Too many children are dying. Too many children. We must do something. It will be hard, but the time is now. You must act. Be bold, be courageous. Americans are counting on you. Thank you.
Gifford's personal testimony as a survivor of an assassination attempt, who lost constituents, her career, and the ability to communicate as she had before, would be effective in any case. But to see her there, supported by her husband, and making such a great effort in the midst of her recovery, would no doubt be particularly moving to her former colleagues. Her handwritten text was short and simple, but effective wording drives home her point. The conversation is important for our children, for our communities, for Democrats and Republicans, because too many people are dying, too many children. The use of parallel structure and repetition emphasizes how many are affected by this problem and that we'll need to come together to solve it. Gifford's appeals to grief, fear, protectiveness, and guilt before shifting to a more optimistic and encouraging tone in her call to action. Be bold, be courageous, and an appeal to Congress's sense of responsibility. Although her delivery may not have been as eloquent or smooth as before the shooting, her conviction was clear. In fact, seeing her speak and hearing her voice was critical to the rhetorical impact. After May 25, 2020, we saw how powerful video, photos, and other graphic representations could change hearts, minds, and policies. George Floyd's killing rallied people around the world largely because there was a video, because a country full of mothers heard him call out for his. Video and photos of his violent death and his mourning loved ones were circulated widely on mainstream and social media, and comparisons were made to the effect when Emmett Till's mother demanded an open casket and for photos to be shared so the whole country would be moved to grief and rage by what had been done to her little boy. Powerful messages were shared around the world on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Veteran Black Lives Matter activists were joined by others who had never protested before in making rhetorical appeals through signs and t-shirts, billboards, and murals. The events of summer 2020 and the concurrent wave of coverage and conversation they sparked around systemic racism and police brutality led to policy changes in some police departments and increasing calls to reduce police involvement in cases where mental health professionals or local resource managers might be more appropriate. All of these images and how they were framed by writers, speakers, and artists, both in support of the movement and against it, will leave their mark on history. Even though this is an emotionally charged topic, if you're writing about it for an academic class, you'll be expected to rely far more on logical appeals. But even empirical evidence can make an emotional impact. If you need help deciding when to use emotional appeals or how to deploy pathos effectively in your own writing, you can schedule a one-on-one consultation with the University Writing Center. We're happy to help at any stage of the writing process.